G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Sunday morning, 23rd of April. Just getting ready to record the round table discussion as we approach 9:30 in the morning. There we go.
Time for our Sunday roundtable, and the question we're asking is how to stop North Korea from hitting us. This weekend, the US Vice President has been in Sydney for talks with the Australian government officials. On top of the list, how to stop Pyongyang's nuclear program. Here's the Vice President, Mike Pence, in Sydney yesterday.
Well, all options are on the table. Let me assure you, the United States will continue to work closely with Australia, our other allies in the region, and with China to bring economic and diplomatic pressure to bear on the regime in Pyongyang until they abandon their nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Mr. Prime Minister, know that President Trump and I are truly grateful to you for calling on China even this week to play an even more active and constructive role in addressing the North Korean threat.
As Vice President Pence with Prime Minister Turnbull at their joint press conference in Sydney yesterday. Now, in response, Pyongyang has accused Australia of blindly towing the US line, and it warned of a possible nuclear strike if Canberra continues to be a lickspittle of the Americans. So what do we make of all this? Is this just bluster, or should we really be worried that an intercontinental ballistic missile could strike Darwin or Los Angeles? How do we disarm the North Korean despot? Are a preventive strike and regime change the ways forward here? Or, and this is a contrarian argument, should we just accept a nuclear North Korea, just like we accepted a nuclear Soviet Union and a nuclear Pakistan and a nuclear communist China? Should we just accept a nuclear North Korea and accommodate ourselves to this reality? Ewan Graham is Director of the International Security Program at the Lowy Institute for International Policy in Sydney. Welcome back, Ewan.
Good morning, Tom.
Andrew O'Neill is a Professor of Political Science in the Griffith Business School in Brisbane. He's in Houston this morning. Good evening in Texas, Andrew.
Hi, Tom.
And Andrei Lankov is a Russian scholar of Asia and a specialist in Korean studies. He's based in Seoul, South Korea. Welcome to ABC Radio, Andrei.
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Great. And I should add that all my guests this morning are internationally acclaimed authorities in North Korea. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you all here. Ewan, let's start with you. What do we make of the past fortnight on the Korean Peninsula?
Well, we've seen North Korea assuming a focus in US policy that it hasn't had for many years, but for longer watchers, a familiar cycle that all presidents seem to go through a similar learning curve where initially they plan on confronting Korea, then they realize the constraints on their options, and they end up taking another line, usually which looks rather something like attempting to get China to do the US's work for it. I think we're in the process of that at the moment. Mr. Trump is a rather different figure to his predecessors. There's the other side of the equation. Kim Jong-un is rather different to his father. He's been very overconfident in the past. He's been very canny and remarkably ruthless in his 5 years as supreme leader. What we've seen is a parade in Pyongyang where there are a whole new range of missiles on show, or at least the canisters that might have the missiles within them, including a potential ICBM.
And then intercontinental ballistic missile.
Indeed, which would change the equation for the US, because then they could potentially hit US cities. Then we had a failed missile test, one of many recently. Of course, failure doesn't mean they don't learn things from it. We didn't have the nuclear test that many people were fearing. And on the American side, we also had a no-show of a US aircraft carrier that was supposed to be in the peninsula, but instead has taken a scenic route through the Indonesian archipelago.
So stuff-ups on both Pyongyang and Washington's part. Andre in Seoul, we've obviously heard the news. I know you've spent time in Canberra at the Australian National University. What do you make of the North Korean threat overnight? This is what they said. If Australia persists in following the US moves to isolate and stifle North Korea, this will be a suicidal act of coming within the range of the nuclear strike of the strategic force of North Korea. Andre, your response?
Yeah, I'm a bit tired of this because
sort of comical with all these threats to everybody, because, roughly every second year, they promise to transform Seoul into the sea of fire. Recently, a couple of days ago, they're going to destroy the entire United States and entire South Korea as well. So, well, if some country does something that they don't exactly like, they publish an official statement that they are going to nuke it out of existence with their largely non-existent nuclear weapons. No, it doesn't mean that their nuclear weapons do not exist. They have some stockpile, but of course, so far not. They don't even have reliable delivery system to strike United States or any country other than South Korea, Japan, and China.
Well, that's a relief to hear. Okay, but there's a but. Go on.
Yeah, however, they are working hard, and it seems to be a question of time before they will have the intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, capable of hitting the United States. Maybe next few years, and North Korea will indeed become the world's third country after Russia and China, capable of hitting the American cities with nuclear warheads. Once again, it seems to be a question of time.
Well, Andrew, in Houston, you've heard all that. I mean, the North Koreans have warned the Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, that she had, quote, better think twice about the consequences to be entailed by her reckless tongue lashing before flattering the US. Your response?
Right.
Well, I mean, I think
Andrew?
I think Andrei's right in the sense that this is kind of stock standard rhetoric we can expect from Pyongyang when another country criticizes it publicly. It's from the North Korean playbook that again is pretty repetitive. But I do think a threat of this nature needs to be taken seriously by any country. I think credible estimates are that the North Koreans, while they haven't yet successfully tested an intermediate range ballistic missile, the Musadan missile, most estimates converge on the assessment that they'll be able to recognize this pretty closely. And that would give the North Koreans a range that could just about hit northern Australia. And if they got an ICBM, it certainly could be KN-08 if the North Koreans were able to make that, to acquire that breakthrough capability. So if the North Koreans can hit the United States, ultimately they can hit Australia. So while again, I think we need to be, we need to discount the North Korean threat, given that this is from the old playbook that's kind of wheeled out during every crisis. On the other hand, any government worth its salt needs to take these threats seriously.
Ewan Graham, what about the role of China in all of this? I mean, we're told that Beijing must force Pyongyang into giving up its nukes, or at least not develop this intercontinental ballistic missile that can hit California or Darwin. Question, do Beijing's leaders, and Malcolm Turnbull reiterated this over the weekend, do the Chinese have some leverage, or to what extent do they have leverage with their communist comrade in Pyongyang?
Well, they do in the sense that now up to 90% of North Korea's trade goes through one country, China. So it's its gateway to the outside economy. In that sense, China could turn off the taps and turn out the lights if it so chose. That doesn't mean that it has political leverage over Kim Jong-un, who has actually killed some of the main channels to China. So he knows full well that China has that capability, and part of the messaging in those tests is to say that regardless of what China and the US does, he will continue down that track towards a nuclear missile capability. We have had some interesting developments just in the last few days, including reports that gasoline prices have increased in Pyongyang. That appears to show at least that the North Koreans are starting to take that seriously, and that their prices actually adjust in a rather market-oriented way. Donald Trump has clearly said that he expects that China is stepping up. That remains to be seen. I don't think that China ultimately has the will or the capability to make North Korea disarm.
And Andrei Lankov in Seoul, I mean, doesn't China really need North Korea for geopolitical reasons? It is a vital strategic asset. People forget this, but China entered the Korean War in late 1950 when the Americans crossed the 38th parallel, And from Beijing's standpoint, surely the collapse of North Korea would be a huge refugee crisis. So what's in China's interest to get tough with Pyongyang?
No, it's not. Or I would say it's in China's interest to get a bit tough, but not excessively tough. You have already mentioned the major reasons. China faces a very unpleasant choice between two scenarios. None of these two scenarios is actually good for China. First, it's a nuclear North Korea. Even though North Korea does not threaten China directly, it means a serious blow to non-proliferation regime. And China, being one of very few, of five actually, officially recognized nuclear powers, benefits tremendously from the non-proliferation regime. However, the second option is unstable and collapsing North Korea. And this is a greater threat than nuclear North Korea if seen from the Chinese point of view. Indeed, as it has been said, China can essentially switch off the North Korean economy by stopping above all oil supplies to North Korea. It will provoke a massive economic crisis, starvation, maybe a few 100,000 North Koreans dead within, say, a year or two. Not necessarily a revolution. Last time they had famine, people died quietly, but definitely economic collapse. But what if people don't die quietly and challenge the regime? It's not exactly what China wants, because they don't want to have a Syria-like situation, war, violence, warlords, everything in a nuclear country nearby.
Yes, well, Andrew, I mean, on that note, Andrew O'Neill in Houston, surely if the North Korean regime collapses, that improves the prospects of a reunified Korea under a US nuclear security umbrella. Now, if you think Russia's overly sensitive about Ukraine being a Western bulwark on its doorstep, how would China respond to a Western bulwark on its doorstep?
Look, I think the scenario from Beijing's perspective of a US-controlled united Korea would be unacceptable. And I imagine that Chinese and US policymakers have certainly been thinking about, if not discussing, sort of the prospect of a kind of G2 partition of the peninsula in the event you have an internal breakdown. There's a lot at stake here. We know the Chinese are very focused on security of weapons of mass destruction in North Korea. They share a 1,400-kilometre border. It's not just the porous border with respect to refugees in the context of any breakdown. It's also a porous border with respect to weapons of mass destruction. So the Chinese have a lot of skin in the game. They would insist indeed in being a part of any intervention force, I think, in the event of an internal breakdown, and I don't think the Americans and the South Koreans would have a free hand. I mean, indeed, far from it. And I think arrangements would need to be put in place well in advance, if they haven't already, of a kind of G2 style arrangement where you have a northern zone potentially and a southern zone. I think that would be required.
My guests are Andrew O'Neill from Griffith University, he's in Houston, Andre Lemkoff, he's in Seoul, and Ewan Graham from the Lowey Institute here in Sydney. Question, can we deal with a nuclear North Korea? Ewan, is Kim mad?
No, he's not. He's rational by the bounds of the DPRK system, that's to use North Korea's official name. But it's also possible that whole countries in their way can be mad. That's one way to think of it. What makes Kim different to his father is that he's actually formalized the goal of being a nuclear weapon state into the country's constitution. Why does that matter? Well, he's hardwired that as an objective into North Korea's domestic politics. That makes it much more difficult to reverse. At least Kim Jong-il always had it in his back pocket that he was prepared to trade that and not formally commit himself to acquiring those nuclear weapons. But I think the personality of Kim Jong-un is relevant here. He's young, he's ruthless, he's clearly personally enthused whenever he attends these parades and tests. We can say he takes a certain glee in shiny toys, and I think that's a worrying part of the dynamic.
Yes, well, I mean, some scholars would say that he's certainly not mad, and there are good reasons why the North Koreans would want nuclear weapons. Before we go there, let's hear from John Mearsheimer. He's the doyen of nuclear deterrence at the University of Chicago. This is Professor Mearsheimer telling me recently why Pyongyang needs nukes.
Okay, back soon with a totally new movie.